Okay, tank update. Thanks for watching, guys. I know the volume is crap. Still can't figure it out. I'm talking directly into some cheap microphone, but I will. Anyway, so I've had some fish loss. I believe I lost at least one Cory. I think just yesterday. I think it was just yesterday. Um, and uh, I haven't seen one of the other Cory in a while, so I'm thinking maybe that one had died and I never caught it, and the shrimp and other things got to it. It just never showed up. Must have been buried back in there. And I could see almost all of the tank from different angles, so that was a little surprising to me that I didn't catch it. And it's possible that Cory's still in there, but anyway, what I think happened, I'll just go down the rundown. So I was doing heavy filtration under gravel, and I have to honestly tell you, I think everything seemed fine to me. The nitrates were high, so I changed up my filtration in an attempt to keep doing zero water change and get that nitrate down. So one of my theories was, okay, the gravel bed isn't anoxic, so I'll cut off the filtration and then rely on the passive circulation of the plenum to bring nitrate to the gravel bed, and then hopefully there's an anoxic development in there. And some people say my gravel bed's not thick enough, and I kind of agree. It's thicker in the back, and there's bags of soil. It's 5 to 6 inches in the back, mostly coarse gravel. I never did the sand, and we'll talk about that later. And I don't have a clay substrate, which I think is also important. So anyway, I'm not going to dig up the gravel bed, so I'm going to reconnect the under gravel. I'm a big fan of the under gravel for many reasons. Um, I'm assuming that most people don't use it for two reasons. They don't get the plant growth they're looking for, and they feel like the under gravel might clog up and become um, superfluous, I guess. Uh, and I agree with the plant that it's hard to get good plant growth with an under gravel. In time, I do feel like the bed can become better for that, whether you're adding root tabs or just the buildup over, a year or, 6 months to a year. You should start developing some kind of substrate, which I think is beneficial to the plants. But I'm not really going for crazy, crazy plant growth, which I know you probably should have if you think you're pulling nitrates out of the water column. And I agree with that. So that is, one negative thing for me. But for tank water quality, I think an under gravel, like a high flow under gravel, is the cat's pajamas, because I feel like the pathogens that would develop in a stagnant gravel bed, I think more often than not can work against the tank than in a helpful situation. I don't think we're exactly creating that ecosystem, that complete ecosystem, with a stagnant substrate. Um, and it's just because we can't mimic nature fully enough to get to make sure that that stagnant substrate is not contributing to negative qualities, pathogens, parasites, um, you know, certain gases and funk that I think would normally be taken care of when the substrate has some flow, via under gravel, high rate under gravel flow. I'm fairly convinced that under gravel is a really good, wouldn't say addition, but supplementation. It's a real benefit, I think, in keeping water quality at its peak. And I might as well just fold this idea in two, and I'll probably just do a separate video. But I don't think you can over filter your aquarium. However, I think you can have too much flow, too much current, too much water movement in the water column. I think you can have too much of that, and there's ways of getting high filtration with low water movement. I think under gravel is a part of that. Um, yeah, so my new conclusion, well, the other reason why I reduced filter too was I was attempting to get rid of all biologic filtration, get it down to the bare minimum in the hopes of just avoiding the nitrogen cycle completely, and ammonia would just be processed out by the plants. Um, and I think what's happening is you don't need a lot of beneficial bacteria to just instantaneously convert ammonia in a tank like mine. And my tank's fairly average. In the small, it, yeah, in the small fish arena, my tank is definitely average, maybe a little bit on the overstock, but even then, I'm going to say that's probably what the average person's doing anyway. I'd be surprised that the average person's not overstocking their tank. So that being said, um, I don't think over filtering your aquarium is essential for the waste, the nitrogen and ammonias. I think over filtering your aquarium is essential for um, having a pristine um, water quality, and that's not just the ammonias and nitrates and nitrites alone. Um, I think I think there's other elements to health, like to a healthy tank, besides those three ingredients. Um, parasites and bacteria and funguses, and um, you know, there's this other unseen element, and I think having exposure and surface area at good flow rates, I think quickly balances out these things, right? I think having a substrate that has flow, um, that could potentially even deal with parasites and funk and bacteria, and to process them as opposed to a stagnant substrate, which for me, I'm not getting any benefit from a stagnant substrate, right? And by that, I basically mean like a thick sand bottom. I'm not going for heavy plant growth because I don't want to be trimming constantly. I don't want one plant to like overshadow another plant, um, which works against me in the nitrate department, I know. But um, so all the boons of like this low filtration, and I ran the experiment. Like I gave it a fair shot. I was going for low filtration, stagnant substrate, seeing if I can process my wastes better. The fish got sick, right? The water quality suffered, right? So I'm reverting back to a high filtration, moving substrate. I'm going to incorporate floating plants, and I have some ideas about how to increase the surface area of floating plants without actually losing a lot of the canopy, so that you're not overshadowing all of the other plants. One way is adding an extra light that you can kind of move to where it's needed. Um, I'm still finalizing that, but yeah. So there's and I'm gonna. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do an upgrade. I'm gonna get a very similar cave on this side over here because this cave is not cutting it, and I'll be able to open the middle so that I can really see into the tank. So if a fish is sick, or if I'm losing a fish, I'll be able to scan the aquarium from all the different directions and really keep an eye on it. Not only that, but just to kind of change it up and freshen it up a little bit. Uh, I'm going to reconnect the under gravel to my Aqua Clear 70. Um, I don't want to use the Aqua Clear 70 because of the noise it makes in the water column, but I just can't find a suitable replacement at this time. Um, I could connect the two the Fluval 207 to that, which was a great idea. I really liked having my 207 connected to the under gravel, um, because there was no noise in the water column. It's got a good flow rate. Uh, it has the adjustable nozzle, so I could change that nozzle to create circulation in sections of the aquarium that haven't gotten for like a couple of weeks, let's say, and just keep moving the circulation around the aquarium so that there's no stagnation. Um, and then I could use my uh, Magnum 350, another external canister, so I can keep all the motors out of the water or vibrating on the glass, um, which I really want to offer that to the fish. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily have to use air either because that makes a lot of noise as well. Because I have such good circulation, um, I'll be able to hopefully diffuse enough through the surface. The other thing I've been thinking about was getting fans. We're trying to mimic nature. A high flow rate across the top of the surface with air movement is how it would normally be done, right? Um, and so I thought that would be kind of a nice feature to see if that how getting air movement across the surface um, can contribute to the health of the tank. And then what I was going to do, because a little bit of my concern was the high electricity, maybe the cost of running all these lights and pumps, was to just do timers. I don't mind having it turn off for 12 hours a day. There's there's no problem with that. The bacteria are going to survive just fine. Um, Nothing should really develop in the canister that is harmful. Or I could do 6 hours, increments of 6 hours, whatever. But just to save some electricity and not compromise on the filter. A filter running for 12 hours is no different than a filter running uh, 24 hours. The After 12 hours of running, it's just as clean as the one that was running for 24 hours, right? So what? You cycled perfectly clean water twice as much. The water's clean after a few cycles. So filters don't need to be running 24/7. They could be on timers, and they could be kicking on for a handful of hours during the day. And I don't think that's going to be a problem. One day I accidentally overfed a little bit, and I knew right there. I saw it. Um, um, and I could see how right away that the tank suffered from just a dash of too much flake food, um, sinking to the bottom. It was maybe double what I would normally do. Um, and I think I had already fed the fish at one point. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was trying to get some down to the bottom. Anyway, that would have been solved with a high flow rate. If the gravel bed was active, if I had good circulation in the water column, um, that overfeeding would have been nothing to the tank. But I think with the low filtration, that was detrimental. Anyway, so my experiment to change up the aquarium, actually, the fish suffered from it. I have been doing water changes, and that's the other thing too, is I wondered if um, the water change had something to do with it. I'm a little suspect of my tap water. Um, of course, I treat it, um, and I do 5 gallons, sometimes closer to 10. But so the things I changed actually led to some fish dying. Um, I'm going to continue to do water changes to keep the nitrate down to at least 100. I don't mind going below 100, but my fish do fine at 100. They do fine at 400 to 500, to be honest with you. Um, there may be visual signs of them huffing and puffing at 400 or 500. They're working their mouths more. I don't know if that has anything to do with the nitrate. That's an assumption of mine. But my fish can tolerate extraordinarily high nitrates, way higher than the average water change keeper is keeping their fish at. And I've never had dies until I started changing water and trying, messing around with filtration, my lower nitrates actually, well, I'm not going to make a claim about what lower nitrates did to the fish. I'm just saying, like, when I started messing with the tank, um, I started getting die off. Um, yeah, so I'm reverting back to a higher filtration. I'm getting a moving gravel bed again, and the only way I'm going to attempt to do anoxic anymore is going to be either external or in a brand new tank where I do a clay substrate, which I'm kind of excited to do. The other thing is that I've got some more floating plants coming. I went on eBay. My local store has frog bit, um, but I'm getting a different a bunch of variety off of eBay. So we'll see how that helps with the nitrates in this tank. But one of the experiments I'm going to do is I'm going to get a 10-gallon and I'm going to fill it up with plants, no fish, sand soil substrate, and I'm going to um, use the high nitrate. I'm going to get this nitrate up to like 400. I'm going to use that water in the 10-gallon with the floating plants, and we'll see how long it takes the plants to drop that nitrate down to orange, 75, whatever. If it's red, I'm going to just keep saying it's 400 until it turns orange. It's a below 100. And so that'll be the experiment I'll run with the floating plants. Might be kind of fun. But yeah, so I just wanted to fill you guys in on the next move. Reverting back to high filtration, but with timers. And I may do it completely with canisters, but maybe at first I'll use the 70. Um, the fish, the noise. I don't know what the noise does to the fish. I don't know if they just tune it out, if it's as big deal as it is to me when I stick my head against the glass and I just hear the motor humming away. I don't know, but that is one of my goals. And I love the Aqua Clear external, the hang-ons. I think they're amazing in so many ways, but they make aquarium noise. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Leave any comments, questions. I'll try to address them directly. There are a few people I still owe a more direct response to via maybe a video, but all right, thanks for watching, guys.